and welcome to another episode of Mark and the Morning.
BSN Homeroom.
So, Mark, it's the end of the year, right?
And another year.
Another year, and of course, with the end of every year, you have your class cleanup. Yeah, cleanup and organization and
pick up plastic cups and papers
and backup.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about Blackboard.
Oh, yes, I am.
Classroom. Okay.
Well, both. I mean, you kind of got both.
I like those big sweeper brushes. Those things are awesome. I love those.
So basically, we have a two-part series, right?
Right.
And this is going to be a special event. It's going to be this week and next week.
Special event.
Yeah. And we're going to do working with basically backup today.
This week, yeah.
This week, and then next week's going to be really about cleanup.
Yeah, it makes sense to back your stuff up before you clean it up.
That's right.
I mean, if you did the other way around. That wouldn't work out
you're not going to be all back up.
I clean my stuff up. Now, how do I back it up?
Yeah, so
that wouldn't work.
And really, we have three things that we're really going to talk about today. We're going to talk about archiving your course, exporting your course, or even exporting your grades from the Grade Center, and really talk about best practices and what you need to do.
Yeah, and this is essentially a way to store stuff in case you need it in the future, right?
That's right.
That's what backup
just
really
in
is
case.
all about.
So let's go out to Blackboard and let's show them where they would actually, first of all, find the archiving export feature.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just in any standard Blackboard class here. If I come down to my control panel, what I want to go to is packages and utilities. That's where you'll find all these types of tools.
Yeah, there's lots of different tools in there. We're only going to really work with one today, and then next week we'll work with another.
Right.
But we're going to work with export and archive.
Yep. So export/archive.
Yeah. We really want to. You'll notice that Mark has several different exports and archives listed there in his course.
Yeah, I've backed up my class before in the past.
In fact, you should do this multiple times. It never hurts to do that.
Yeah.
But I guess really is what's the difference between the two, right, Mark?
Well, let's find out. So you've got an option of export and archive, and essentially what archive does is it's like a one-click way to back up everything about your class.
So when you say everything, we're talking your Grade Center, your students' work, postings, hand-in assignments, tests taken, everything.
Right. So when I go to archive, it doesn't actually ask me a lot of questions.
No.
But the only question it really asks me is, do I want to include the Grade Center history? So let's say that you've done a lot of grading, you've changed students' grades, you've exempted grades, it'll keep all that history. Whereas if you don't check that box, it'll just keep the final grade.
Final grade, whatever's in the Grade Center.
So that's up to you whether you want to do it or not. There is an option about linking to content. We just recommend that you generally leave that on.
Correct.
Some of you may be more familiar with how the CMS works, and you may want to change that, but that's up to you. So in that case, you answer like 2 questions.
Yep.
You click submit. And what will happen is Blackboard will begin backing up your course at that point.
So it doesn't, you'll notice that it's not showing up right there. Those are the old ones, and you'll notice in your receipt there, it's actually telling you that this process has been started and it's been queued, meaning it's waiting to finish up that process. It doesn't happen automatically.
Right.
And you will receive an email as long as...
your email address is in the system.
That's right, as long as you have a valid email address in the system.
Yeah, and essentially, however much information there is, the more information, the longer it takes.
Yes.
Rarely takes more than like 30 minutes. But if you've got a small class with very little content, one student, it might be like a minute.
Yeah.
It just depends on the situation.
And again, it's not going to automatically pop up because this is a static screen here. You have to refresh the screen by simply
refresh
click, refresh, and eventually it's going to come up and it'll show you the date and time that you initiated that backup.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll look like I have them here, and you can see on the right it says date created, and then these are links to the files. So an archive file is actually a zip file, like a zip package.
Yeah, so you can't open it on your computer. It has to be something that needs to be restored, meaning you have to re-upload it, a package into your course, or have your OPC restore that course. And we actually, if you are going to restore a course, we always say get your OPC to do that.
Yeah, and really that's a worst case scenario. I mean, most of the time, you shouldn't ever need to restore your course.
That's right.
But let's say something catastrophic happens, you accidentally delete a huge section of your course, or you have a student that, due process or something, you need to get some detail on the grade.
You got to find the work they handed in their assignments, okay? You got to actually see the online tests that they took.
Right.
So if you need lots of information, then the archive is really the best way. But in most cases, you're probably not going to restore your archive.
Hopefully not. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
You'll never need to.
Yeah. So Mark, then what about the export then? What does the export do compared to the archive?
So export goes into a little bit more depth. First of all, it doesn't allow you to back up your students' grades at all.
Correct.
That option isn't even in there.
That's right.
So this is more about backing up your content.
Content and course, yes.
Yeah, so let's say you've created lots of lessons, you have all kinds of PowerPoints, all that.
Blogs, wikis, your online tests, all those things.
Yeah.
Again, any student interaction, meaning I submitted an assignment, I took one of the online tests, any of those things, my post or anything like that, are not part of the export.
Yes.
So student basically interaction is not.
Yeah, so try to separate the two. If you need to back up students' grades, you're going to have to archive.
Correct.
You don't, you just, for peace of mind, want to back up your content, export, okay? And you'll notice immediately that export has a lot more options.
Correct.
Than archive. So here in my course, I have several content areas. So let's say you've got 5 units, you can just back up unit 1 if you want to. You don't have to back them all up.
Or if you want to actually get a whole unit out to share with somebody.
Exactly, yeah. So the main key thing to think about when you do an export is this fact that Blackboard has several different things going on at once, right? There's content and then there's tools. So let's say, for example, I want to back up all of Unit 1 and I have, say, 5 tests in Unit 1.
Correct.
I need to check Unit 1 and I also need to make sure I select my test.
Yeah, because the link to the test will be there, but not the test itself.
Exactly. Same thing is true of any, what Blackboard calls a tool. So it's generally interactive things.
Yeah, basically you create a link in your content area so students can click on that link to access those tests, those blogs, those wikis, those tools.
Yeah.
But if you don't actually export those tools with them and the content that goes along with them, then you're going to have just basically a broken link.
So think about that. My Unit 1, I've got some blogs, I have some discussions, I don't have any journals in that one, so I don't need it. Think along those types of lines. And also, if you decide to export things like your grade center, think about things like rubrics. Do you have rubrics linked to your grade center columns? If you do, you need to check rubrics.
And remember, because you're exporting your grade center, it's basically it's just going to be the columns, not the rows of the students, just the columns. No student information.
Yeah. So think about that kind of thing. Obviously, if you're not sure, you can always check everything. But if you want to be specific and just share one unit.
So at the end of the year, though, Mark, if I'm really worried about student data, probably the archive's the way to go.
Yep.
If I just want to save my materials throughout the year to make sure that they're backed up and so forth, then an export.
Yeah, and sometimes I say to people, if you're new to Blackboard and you're going to make a big change to your course, do a quick export first.
Correct.
Because if you accidentally delete a content area or something, that's not so good.
Now, Mark, here's my question, okay? Maybe I just need to access one grade from a student. Maybe it's just their final grade or something like that. Do I want to really archive and restore an archive and go through all that process, or would there be a much more simpler way in which I could actually get that grade after that student's been removed?
It's funny you asked that question because there is a way. So yeah, archive does everything. Export does a lot, and then if we go down one more level, you can actually export directly from your grade center as well.
Correct.
So let's just hop into grade center here, and I'll just go to full grade center for now. So I'm looking at my grade center. I'm not worried about all those attempts. I just want a grade.
I want the I want the 95% or whatever it is. So I can refer back to that.
Yeah. So you'll find in the top right hand corner of the grade center there's a work offline. It's one of those yellow buttons that you may have never even noticed. Correct. That right? When you go to that, you'll see there's a download option. And essentially what this allows you to do is download a spreadsheet of your grades, your current final grades in that particular grade center.
Yeah, and you do have a few options here. You can do the full grade center, or maybe you want to actually do this at the end of each marking period.
That's a nice way to do it.
Which is a good idea too. But you'll notice that you do have options here because we are in the full grade center mode.
Right, yeah. So like here, as Mark said, there's an option of marking period. There's an option where I can select, maybe I just want to get just their total grades. But if I want to get more complex than that, what if I just want to pull the test grades out or something like that?
Yeah, or the assignments or whatever it may be.
Then what I'm going to have to do is run through a smart view or a filter to do that.
Correct. So
let me hop back. I'll do a filter just to make it easier. We go back to full grade center, and right by work download, there's also a filtering option here.
And you can filter, or if you have, again, smart views are basically just pre-filters that you've created that do several different types of filtering options for you that you can click once and just have that filter applied.
Right, exactly. So let's say here, for example, under a filter, I want to download all of the assignments that are considered to be essays. I would select that option. I don't think I actually have any essays in this course, but that's okay.
Do exams.
And then I go to work online, I hit download, and it will just pull those columns. Okay. Now, as Mark said, if you use Smart Views, I have a predefined Smart View here that shows me just the collaboration projects in my class.
Yeah.
So now when I go to work offline and download, instead of giving me an option, do you want full, do you want marking period, it just says current view.
The current view. So what you're viewing is what you're going to download.
Yeah, exactly.
So best case scenario, our suggestion to you is if it's the end of the year, which it is, and we're talking about cleanup, you probably want to download your full grade center.
Yeah, probably.
So that you have everything. Now, again, it's not going to be the attempts. It's not going to be what they submitted. It's just going to be the grade in which basically your columns and your rows.
Yeah, it'll give you a file that you can open in Excel or any other spreadsheet program, and it would just be rows and columns. And like Mark was saying about exporting, this is another way you can share things. You know, if your guidance office is saying, send me a list of all your students' tests and final grades, you can just export this and just email it to them, you know?
Yep. And so a little bit easier in an archive because I can literally save that on my computer.
Right.
And I can open that file up and I can actually just read that file and say what grades they are, or even, again, email like you said, compared to an archive, which, again, backs up everything and it should be done, but then you have to do a full restore. And it might take you a little bit longer to get that information out.
And this information can be read by something other than Blackboard.
Correct.
Export and archive has to go back into a Blackboard server. This you could open in Excel or OpenOffice or whatever. Yeah.
So basically, we're telling you to make sure that you have everything backed up. We highly suggest that you archive your course, but also download your Grade Center. Archiving gives you the ability to have everything backed up in case you do need everything, but the exporting of the Grade Center allows you to very rapidly get any of that information that you need very, very quick and easy from the grade point of view. But if you need more than that, your archive is always available. And you can archive from year to year and just store them right in your course.
Just keep them there. Yeah.
Hey, I want to thank everyone for watching another episode of Mark and Mark in the Morning.
BSN Homeroom.
Have a great day and back up your course.